Hello, beautiful souls. This is Jaime Goldstein, intuitive astrologer for the Bridging Sky and Earth Embody Your Star Wisdom Summit. And I am so honored and delighted to be here with Kaylin K. Castell, shamanic astrologer. And she is going to be sharing about the magic and mystery of the 19-year Lunar Standstill. This was something, phenomenon that I did not know about. So, and Kaylin's tuned me into it since. So I'm really excited that she'll be here sharing this with us. So I'm going to read Kaylin's bio for anyone who might be new to Kaylin. Kaylin K. Castell is the co-founder of Venus Alchemy, My Star Alchemy, and the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. In addition to writing monthly celestial timings for over 25 years, she enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings and teaching both online and in-person events, changing lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. So welcome, Kaylin. I'm so excited that you're here. And I would love to just start off by asking, what does it mean for you, bridging sky and earth?
Well, we'll just tag team off of that final statement of as much as they inform us, because when we know that ancient cultures had such a strong connection to what was going on in the sky, and they did ceremony, and they did, they built amazing structures. We're going to look at some of this as we explore the Lunar Standstill. And they had such a living relationship with the earth and the sky, the magic between the two of them. So for me, one of the things that happened back in the mid-90s, I was emerging as a priestess. So not becoming a priestess, or just reclaiming the fact that I already am a priestess, and I'd done this whole 9-month process. And I realized that part of my priestess energy was to be the connecting link between the earth and the sky, and the ancient future and the here and now. And so I was already bringing these mysteries into the priestess community then, and that was 27 years ago. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I just feel like it's so exciting that there are so many people who are starting to remember and realize that this is meant to be a living relationship, something that got taken from us, because we could imagine that the elite people who were trying to dominate and control people took away the astrological mysteries, the sky mysteries from the people so they could have control over them. And we now have to get that back. So this is so exciting that you're doing this, and there's so much excitement around this summit, because it really shows how we've really turned a corner in terms of how we are reclaiming these mysteries for ourselves, that we are here to be informed by them, but we are also here to inform them. So good. I'm just really excited to be a part of it.
Kaylin, I'm getting chills as you're talking. This is so, so powerful. And the first time I tuned into your work and I heard you share that we inform the mysteries just as much as they inform us, it was like a light bulb went off within me, and I became more of a co-creator with the mysteries. I mean, life just got so much more magical and so much more exciting when I tuned into astrology in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We're co-creators, but we forgot, and we're discouraged from remembering that, and we were conditioned out of it. So now we get to reclaim that and become the co-creators we've always been, again, more consciously, and we can do it together. So good.
Oh my gosh. And I love that you're really like, you're leading the way with this. It's so, so powerful. I mean, you have been such an inspiration to me as an astrologer and a guide for me on my astrology path. So I'm just so grateful for what you're bringing here to the astrology community. And so I love when you brought the idea for the Lunar Standstill for the summit. I was like, I don't know what that is. And you've since tuned me into this. And so for anyone who's watching who may not know about this either, what is the Lunar Standstill?
Yeah, so this is something that I'm just going to start with the sun does the same thing every year. So we have equinoxes, we have solstices, the sun returns to the same place in the sky on the horizon as it's rising and setting every year. The moon is only doing that every 19 years. So it goes through all these places, but it's like to come back on the same day and the same place on the horizon. That's only every 19 years. And I really want to, I'm going to share some images here because I think I'm a visual person. It's easier to kind of see it from the start, right? Or from this. So, and again, here's my tagline on my website: we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us, because I love it so much. So I thought what I'd do is I would just give you a little bit of the visuals, because I'm a very visual person, the visuals of what's happening. And there is a archaeoastronomer named Kim Melville, and he started noticing, and this is Chimney Rock in Colorado. These are the two rocks that form the chimney, and the moon only rises between the chimneys every 19 years. And so, and they were building kivas every 19 years, and they couldn't figure out, why were they building kivas every 19 years? What was going on? And so what happened was, and again, this is just showing how the full moon rises up between the chimneys. And the last time this happened was in 2005, 2006, and 2007. And it's during the time when the full moon is in Cancer. It can happen when the moon is also in a crescent in Cancer during the lunar standstill. But they thought at first that the sun was rising between the chimneys, and that's what they were tracking. The sun never rises between the chimneys. It's not far enough declination. So what happens with the lunar standstill is the moon moves out to 28, almost 29 degrees beyond where the sun is. So the sun rises at 23.5 degrees north at the south at the December solstice, and north at the June solstice in the northern hemisphere. And so, but it can never go beyond that. So the moon every 19 years, and it's really for a period of time, really about 3-year period, where it's at its maximum movement beyond where the sun can be, and only in the signs of the solstices. So 0 Cancer, 0 Capricorn, somewhat in Sagittarius, somewhat in Gemini, it'll start moving out beyond those boundaries. So it's pretty exciting. And we have the next lunar standstill happening now. It's actually started. It'll be kind of the center point is 2025. 2006 was the center point the last time. And we're going to start seeing then, if you're at Chimney Rock and there's the full moon in Cancer, or in Gemini, you're going to see where the moon can rise up between the chimneys. Really exciting. So this is just some other images. Here's people waiting for the moon to rise up between the chimneys. Here's the moon rising up between the chimneys, and another vision of our version of that. So I think it's become really popular for people to go and watch this now, because they start to realize, and what Kim Melville found out or figured out was that they were building these kivas every 19 years to honor and celebrate this rare occurrence. And they were doing it with intention. They were doing it ceremonially. Kivas are ceremonial spaces. And so we could imagine then that they were understanding, that they knew that when the moon was doing this and making this connection between the chimneys, that there was something new being birthed, something new coming in, and they were co-creating with that. So exciting.
This is right? So cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. Now, interestingly, there's a guy named Alexander Thom. He wrote a book called Megalithic Lunar Observatories that he found in Scotland. And he wrote a book about it back in 1971. And he's the one that came up with the term lunar standstill. And the reason is because if we think about the solstice, sol is sun and stis means standstill. So it's the standstill of the sun. So at each solstice, the sun rises in the same place on the horizon for really almost 3 weeks, but precisely for 3 days. The sun is standing still before it's so it goes as far north as it possibly can, and then it starts moving back south. It goes as far south as it possibly can, then it starts moving back north. So each solstice, it's like that pendulum swing of the sun rising up on the horizon. So when Alexander Thom saw what was going on, he's like, oh, the moon is doing that, but it's in a much larger cycle. It's every 19 years, not every year like that. So one of the things that we also have learned is that when the precise lunar standstills are happening, it's when the nodes are at right angles to the moon. So a lunar standstill moon rise or set can never happen when there's an eclipse. It's because the nodes are what determine the eclipses. So that's pretty cool. And what also I've been noticing, and I've noticed this even more so in this particular lunar standstill, when the nodes are, actually it started with the nodes in Gemini, the North Node in Gemini. And then of course we've got it happening this year with the North Node in Taurus. And then when it gets to 0 Aries point, that's the center point of the maximum lunar standstill. And that's the way that Alexander Thom referred to it as the major standstill when it goes the furthest out. And then there's the minor standstill when the moon doesn't go out as far as the sun even. We'll look at that just a little bit in a moment. But major sounds more important and minor sounds less important. So we call it the outer standstill, meaning the moon is going outside the boundaries of the sun. And the inner standstill, meaning the moon is not going outside the boundaries of the sun. Anyway, so on January 11th, 2025, the North Node reaches 0 Aries. That's the center point of this lunar standstill. Now, I need to do a little more research on this, but I suspect that the Serpent Mound and other mounds in Ohio, they were tracking the lunar cycle, they were tracking the solar cycle, and I suspect they were tracking the 19-year lunar standstill cycle. So here's the mound, the Serpent Mound, and then where the sun would rise in certain places along the serpent's body. Pretty cool. So we have an example of that being a place where they were aware of how things were connecting the sky to the earth, right? So if we think about east and west, at the equinoxes, the sun's rising exactly due east and setting due west. And at the solstices, it's either going to be north of east or south of east. And here there are a lot of stone circles that are tracking the distance between the midpoint of east. Now in the lunar standstill, the major standstill or the outer standstill, the moon is going out beyond where the sun can go. And if we had stones, like this would be partially outside beyond, but then we could say the most extreme places that it's going outside beyond. And literally back in 1997, 98, I got to witness at Faywood Hot Springs, the owner there, along with Daniel Jamario, who's the creator of the shamanic astrology paradigm, they put together a standing stone circle. And they were tracking the solstices and the equinoxes. And we also had the opportunity to track the outer standstill. And there's a stake that got put in for when it was rising at the different standstill points. But I don't know that there was ever a stone that was put in. But that's that's like a modern day kind of, here's how we can track this thing. You can actually, if you go and watch the sunrise in the same place pretty much every day, you'll see it shifting along the horizon. And then you'll see it reach its maximum point and then it starts shifting back. You can do the same thing with the moon. And it's easier to see the full moon rise or set than it is to see like a new moon. You can't see a crescent moon, you might not see it rise, that kind of thing. So the full moon is really the one to keep track of. So I just also wanted to give another example. This is a Hopi horizon calendar. And this is looking at the December solstice, December 21st, where the sun rises along their horizon. And of course, it shifts along the horizon at different times of the year. And we could imagine then that if a full moon at the lunar standstill, at the outer standstill, is going to rise way beyond on the horizon. So this is a way for us to start to figure out how this is happening where we live, if we want to go out and see that. Now, one of the things that I was sharing this with you earlier, Jamie, and I just have to share it again, because when I first started getting excited about what was happening with the moon and the extremes of the moon, I was out for a morning walk. This was in the mid 90s. I don't remember the exact time, but I think it was at the inner lunar standstill. And I saw the full moon set down on top of a mountain and slide down the hill. And it was the full moon in Capricorn. It was in the summer. It was sliding down the mountain. And I was having this moment like, oh my God, I'm happy to be here at the right time, on the right day, at the right moment, to be able to see this happen, and it won't happen again for 19 years. Oh, this is so amazing. So it just lit me up like, oh, that was such high magic that I felt I got to witness.
That is extraordinary.
Yeah, so I hope it inspires people to want to go out and check out like moon rise, moon set. You know, if you've got certain things going on your horizon line, you want to check that out. And so I'm thinking it's probably, I don't have as good a clear view of those mountains at where I am now, but I'm thinking I might need to make a special trip out there to check it out, but probably not for another 9 years, because it was at the inner standstill. And interestingly, I was born in the inner standstill time. And so I felt like the universe was kind of knocking at my door, like, oh, you need to pay attention to this. You know, do your ceremonies, make your intentions, and create your ceremonial magic with these timings. So hence why I get really excited about
yeah, so cool.
Yeah. So so here's just another vision of the you know, the sun at its northern extreme and its southern extreme, and then how also other planets can go out beyond the boundaries of the sun, called out of bounds planets. At the moon only does it for a time period every 19 years. And so, and the center point, of course, for this next one is in 2025, and then it'll happen again in 2043. Now, interestingly, that doesn't sound like, that sounds more like 18 years, but it's the, it has to do with the months, and it's like happening late in 2043, I think, where it reaches its maximum point. And so anyway, the one that we really want to pay attention to right now is the one that's happening, because who even knows if we'll still be around in 2043. So here's like, and I was talking about the stone circle that was built in Faywood Hot Springs. It was very similar to this kind of a setup, where there was the center stone, and then there was the stones around the center, and the stone that marked east, and this says south and north, but it marks east and west, where the sun rises at the equinox, and then at the winter solstice sunrise, it's rising furthest south, and at the I'm sorry, it shouldn't say winter solstice sunrise. Oh, they're saying sunset. Okay, so this is a little bit confusing, but when the sun rises, it's rising furthest south, and then it tracks low across the sky, and it sets furthest south. And so that's what's happening. So when the full moon is in the signs of Gemini, Sagittarius, and Capricorn, it's also tracking low across the sky and rising and setting. But when it's in the lunar standstill time, it's going to be outside of where the sun is rising and setting. So that's pretty cool. And then, so here we can see the moon outside the boundaries of where the sun is rising and setting along the horizon. And again, when we were at Faywood, we did set a stake that would show where the moon was going to rise at the lunar standstill. Pretty cool. Yeah, so anyway, the other thing I got to do back in 1997 was when there was the inner standstill of the moon, go to Scotland, to Callanish, where they have standing stone circles. And this is what Alexander Thome was noticing, was that there are these stone circles all over, and they were tracking the 19-year lunar standstill, and as well as the seasonal cycles and different things. And what happens in Callanish is that the moon literally rolls through the stone circle. And so this is the moon between the stones at I think this one was in 1987 when there was a lunar standstill that was happening then. but it's pretty remarkable to be able to be there. And another vision of a place we used to take people to, a petroglyph site. You can see all these petroglyphs here, and they were tracking solstices and equinoxes and different things. But they also, it just so happened that the moon at the 19-year lunar standstill would rise up the side of the mountain. So you can see it going up further to the top, and then off into the sky. So it's like launching into the sky. And we happened to be there in 2005 when it was doing this kind of thing. It was pretty cool. So one of the things I want to do, I maybe went to zip forward. Nope, I'm just going to go back. Is just to talk about that, what happens as in the sky, what we see happening in the sky when the moon is off the ecliptic. So here's the path of the sun, and the sun can never be off this green line, the path of the ecliptic, and the planets can go up and go, outside the boundaries of that. But the moon, when it's at the lunar standstill, it goes over galactic center. So the center of the galaxy is below the ecliptic, and the sun can never cross that part of the sky. And this is going to be in March 24th, coming up pretty quick. The moon is not that far off yet. It's like 26 degrees south of the ecliptic, but by 2025, it's going to be 28 degrees south of the ecliptic. So it's even further below, and it's going to essentially occult galactic center. So if we think about, right. So if we think about, what does this mean? What is this about? It's like any kind of occultation, any kind of eclipse. Eclipses and occultations are very similar. It accelerates the energy we're holding in intention. So we want to be very conscious of what it is we're holding in our, what we're doing ceremonially, how we're engaging this when there's different timings, that the moon is going to be going across this part of the sky. Now, this is a new moon, so we won't see the moon then, but we can tune into the energy on December 19th, 2025. And then there's March 24th, 2022. We can tune into the fact that the moon is going across, and it's not quite a total eclipse or a total occultation of galactic center, but it is starting to energize that possibilities that we have. So we want to be maybe doing some kind of intentional ceremonial connection with that. And of course, it is going to be a last quarter moon. So people will see that in the morning sky or after midnight, and when that's happening. But just to get that idea that we can work with this monthly, we can engage with these mysteries, with these energies. And it's going to be from now until 2026, 2027. It's a powerful time once each month that the moon is dropping far enough below at and when it's in the sign of Sagittarius and Capricorn, that it's going to actually ignite the energies. And literally scientists have found that galactic center is giving off energy all the time. And the moon is a transmitter. So it's transmitting the mysteries and the energies that it's coming from galactic center when it's crossing directly over it. It's like, whoa, so cool. Yeah. And then this is going to be March 21st, 2025, when the moon, and you can see the moon is even further below the ecliptic at this particular time. And it's, right at galactic center, 27 Sagittarius then. So these are the kinds of things that, and it's at maximum like 28 degrees south, 41. It's almost 29 degrees south of the ecliptic, whereas the sun can only be 23 and a half. So pretty cool. Something that we have to look forward to, and we can start practicing and preparing for. So any questions about anything I've covered so far?
Wow, this is just extraordinary. I'm almost like just speechless because it's so amazing. Yeah, And I love that you just touched on that, like the moon is a satellite, and when the moon's going through, especially at this time when the moon will be passing through the galactic center, it's like transmitting all of this galactic, all of this cosmic energy, which is just incredible. I feel the energy of that as you're sharing. I'm curious, what does it mean just in general, like the like symbolism or the significance of the lunar standstill? I know you've touched on it some, but I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, if we think of the moon as kind of telling us what time of the month it is, right? And month is month. It's like
Yeah.
the months are ancient cultures track the moon, and they were very into what was going on with it. And especially when there were certain full moons around solstices and equinoxes and specific times. And interestingly, it was so important that they would create specific ceremonies and timings around that. Now, literally here we have Chaco Canyon. This is on Fajada Butte. They've got these stones that are set up a certain way so that when the sun at summer solstice comes through, it creates this dagger through the center of the spiral. And
Wow.
the spiral has 19 turns on it. So they were also tracking the lunar standstill. And
Whoa.
I know, so amazing. So here we go. These are the solar markings at midday. So when the sun at the equinoxes, the sun dagger would be on this part of the spiral. At summer solstice, at this part of the spiral, and at the winter solstice, it's on this part of the spiral. So it's just, they were tuned in. Well, they also were watching the lunar standstill. And so again, here we have the solar lunar cycle 0 point when it's at 0 of Aries, or zero declination. At the inner standstill, or also called the minor standstill, but we like to call it the inner standstill, it's bisecting the spiral halfway. And then at the outer standstill, it's just barely touching the outer edge of the spiral. And so they were keeping track of the lunar standstill, and I am sure had very significant ceremonies to honor that particular time. So this is just another seeing it all together kind of, and how these stones, it's like how the light comes through, the moonlight comes through, or the sunlight comes through and lights up the spiral. And so if it was that important to them to create this, if it was that important for them to build a standing stone circle in Scotland, when the moon is at its extreme, at its southern extreme, and literally let me just go back. Let me go back to to this. When the moon is, the saying that they had was, when the moon walks the land at the calling of the cuckoo, the shining ones will return. And I've heard it also, the shining one will return, but maybe the shining one being the moon. I don't know what they meant by that, but when I was there in 1997, we were doing a ceremony at the full moon time, and somebody was saying, "Hey, I just heard a cuckoo call." And so I was like, "Oh, we're the shining ones. We're the ones that need to remember all this. We're the ones that need to come back and show up and engage with this magic and this mystery, so that we can change the world that we're living in." How exciting is that? So this was so important to them. They built, these are megalithic stones. It was not an easy project, right? It's not, there was so much intention that was connected to that. So same way with Chaco Canyon and other places around the world that have had these, at Chimney Rock, where they were building, they had a natural landscape thing that was happening, but they also were building the kivas, the ceremonial centers, every 19 years. Also, the other thing is, in Scotland, is that where they built that standing stone circle, there's a mountain that's in the shape of a woman, and the moon rises up and walks across her body. So when the moon walks the land, it literally walks across her body. And then it sets in a certain way, and it shows up in the circle. And if you have somebody standing in the right place at the right moment, they can be captured by the halo of the the aura of the moon around them. And there was a picture that was taken back in 1987 that did that, so that they were proving that that actually did happen. So, and I already mentioned this, on January 11th, 2025, the North Node is at 0 Aries. So this is the center point of the lunar standstill time. And again, every 19 years, there's these are the times that were calculated for Greenwich time. And so the last time we had it was March 22nd, 2006, when it was at its most extreme, and the moon was at 0 Capricorn. In 2025, it'll be March 22nd, and the moon is at 2938 Sagittarius, almost 0 Capricorn. So that'll be the maximum point of this lunar standstill time. And then on March 7th, when it's in 2941 Gemini, that's when it'll be at the northern extreme. And so it's pretty cool to be able to just realize we have this coming and we have time to prepare for it. Just so remarkable. And now I just wanted to just speak a little bit more about the how, every 19 years, the moon will come back to the same place on the horizon. The sun does that every year, but it takes 19 years for the moon to do that. And then there's this inner standstill when the moon doesn't go out past 18.5 degrees, either south or north. And then there's the outer standstill when the moon goes out to 28, almost 29 degrees past where the sun can be. And so if you happen to have the North Node in, say, the early degrees of Gemini or Taurus or Aries or Pisces, you were born during an outer standstill. Now, it doesn't mean that the moon, unless the moon was in, say, Capricorn, Sagittarius, Capricorn, or Gemini, Cancer, would the moon be out of bounds at the moment of your birth? But you were born during that time, if that makes sense. And so I was born in the inner standstill. The moon is like 18 degrees, and I have a Sagittarius moon. So, so it was in the inner standstill time that I actually have that connection personally. So you can figure out if you have a personal connection to it or not based on the sign that the moon is in, and also the sign that the nodes are in. So if you have the North Node in Sagittarius, I do, Scorpio, Libra, or Virgo, then you were born during the inner standstill. Now, it doesn't matter where the moon is, you are still born during an inner standstill time.
So my nodes are late Pisces, Virgo. So that would mean I was born during one of these periods.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, so the 19-year moon cycle, so age 19, the sun and the moon come back on your birthday to the same sign and degree, very close.
Yeah.
And then age 38, it happens again. Age 57, it happens again. Age 76, it happens again. So if you happen to be turning a multiple of 19 during this time, you are close to the lunar standstill. How cool is that?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we could imagine that geomancy, or the geomantic magic that the ancient cultures did, was connected to because they were recognizing what was going on and they were finding ways to honor it. So they built stone circles, or they built petroglyph sites, or they built chambered cairns, or they built like at Chaco Canyon, they were building the kivas. So they were engaging these mysteries in a way that was significant to them. It's like having that relationship. So how can we now engage this relationship again? And maybe if this is something that lights you up, I know it lights me up. There's a place here in Tucson, it's called a sun circle, and it's tracking the solstices and the equinoxes. And I happened to be at this sun circle back in 2006 when there was the Cancer full moon rising, and it lit up the pathway that the sun would light up, but it was lit up outside that. So I could see the maximum how the moon had gone past where the sun could be and was lighting up this circle in a different way. And it was so exciting. I'm like, oh, I don't even have to build anything. I can just go and experience it here. So you may have something where you are that you can do that, or you can put stones, watch how the sun is rising and setting along the horizon, and then watch the moon, especially full moon rises and sets, and just keep track of that and see if you can have a sense of how the moon at the standstill. And now we could say the full moon rise in Capricorn around the summer solstice, it's going to be outside the boundaries. It'll be the most outside the boundaries in 2025, but it's already outside the boundaries. So I will I have a link to an article that I've written about all of this, and you can see when the moon is outside the boundaries. And if you feel inspired to go out and participate with this, because this is when magic really happens. It's when we are paying attention, when we are engaging, when we are in that co-creative relationship with the mysteries. And the moon, of course, is the closest thing to Earth. Right? It's the closest, I don't know, I guess we call it a planet, but it's closest to the Earth. And so it affects our tides. When there are full moons, there are more births, that happen through animals giving birth and people giving birth and all of that. There's so many things that the moon is already connected to that we know about. They call it lunacy when there's a full moon and people are acting crazy and there's more accidents and things that happen. So the hospitals are usually busier.
If you worked in the public schools like I did, we all know about the full moon with our students.
Right. So, but just imagine how that wouldn't be happening if we had a better relationship with these timings.
Yeah.
The tides are higher at certain times, when the moon is closest to the Earth, and especially when it's full and closest to the Earth, or that kind of thing. So what we're really hoping to cultivate here is a stronger relationship, and that with our intention and attention, and through ceremony and through whatever it is, the ways that work for people to be engaged with this. And sometimes it's just going out and seeing it and just being in awe of, wow, look at that. I saw the moon slide down that mountain.
Well, I love that you're bringing awareness that is ceremony, just giving our presence, being in relationship with the mystery through our presence, that it can be that simple, and not simple as in, inferior or bad or any way, but that it can be that simple. Sometimes, at least with my Virgo South Node, I feel like things have to get really complex. Sometimes, lots of ritual, lots of ceremony, and it's like, wow, it can be just offering our presence. That is ceremony.
Yeah. And to be open, and also to open our awareness to what's the messages that might be coming through for us. What's the new thing that's being birthed? Because if we think about the 19-year lunar standstill, and that births happen with the full moon, they tend to happen more often. They can happen anytime, but they tend to happen more often.
I was born just after the full moon.
I had my twins 20 minutes before an exact full moon. Wow. Right. My other kids were not that, they were first quarter moons or last quarter moons or something else, but the that essence of the birth energy. So what is being birthed every 19 years? And why were the cultures so interested in that they wanted to engage it and to participate with it? Because they could help inform that birth, right? So we're coming into this time of a new birth. And I think 2025 is just going to be, we've been going through the dismantling of so much, and we may still continue that for a little while longer. But then maybe if we're paying attention and we're starting to dream into and ask our higher self, the part of us that knows, the part of us that is engaging and wanting to reconnect the earth and the sky within us, right? To be that connecting link and have it within us. And then we get to help co-create a new world that we want to live in.
So. Chills. I love this. There's some big kind of astrological shifts around that timing too, of Uranus and Neptune, I think isn't Neptune moving into Aries around that time? 2027. I can't hold dates in my mind. I don't know.
I don't know, but I do know that in 2025, Jupiter's in Cancer. So that actually adds to the whole, like the moon, when the moon's in Cancer and all of that going on. And of course, then by then, Pluto will definitely be fully into Aquarius. And
yeah, I think 2025 and 2026, Uranus is retrograding back and forth between, into Gemini, back into Taurus, back into Gemini.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of other things going on, but even if we only just paid attention to this,
yeah,
you could imagine that maybe ancient cultures didn't know what Uranus was doing.
Yeah.
If they had telescopes, maybe they did. I don't know, but they probably knew more than we realize. But and it was interesting because archaeoastronomers felt that ancient cultures could not have possibly known about the 19-year lunar standstill. And it wasn't until Kim Malville was like, oh, they're building these every 19 years when the moon rises up between the chimneys. Oh, they did know about it. We're the ones that maybe are a little less informed.
Yeah.
So yeah, if this was even the only thing that was going on, it would be big. It would be huge. And then you add whatever else might be going on, and that makes it even bigger.
Wow. This is so powerful. Well, I am so inspired, Kaylin. I really want to set an intention to go observe this somewhere and be in that ceremonial space, be in that, heart-centered presence with this while it's happening out, with my feet on the earth and out there observing it. So thank you for giving, the heads up to tuning into this and to be able to plan ahead and to get to experience this. This is quite extraordinary. Do you have any, as we close here, any inspiration coming through about anything you want to leave with us as we're moving through this time?
So I think I pretty much said everything about in terms of the magic and the mystery of what we can engage and the opportunity that we have, and that we want to have even greater awareness and placing our attention and our intention in connection to all of this. And again, as I said, there is an article that I have all starting in actually March of 2022, all the times when the moon is going to be outside the boundaries of the sun. And sometimes you'll be able to see that more easily than other times. If it's a new moon, you won't see it. But if it's a first quarter moon, you won't see it rising probably, unless you happen to be like, I think it rises around noonish, the first quarter moon rises around the noontime. And if you're outside and paying attention, that kind of thing. But especially the full moons, and to start working with that now, when the moon's in those more extreme times, the northern extreme and the southern extreme, starting to develop that relationship with it and tuning in and journaling or asking, or, again, we can ask the part of us that knows. And clearly people that are listening to this, there's a part of them that wanted them to know about this. Right. And to have it explained to them in a way that would make sense, that they could start activating that magic and that mystery within themselves.
This is so powerful. Thank you so much, Kaylin, for being here. You are just such a gift to the astrology community. And I've had the pleasure of taking your My Star Alchemy class, which was just extraordinary to connect with the magic of the fixed stars. And in that way, do you have anything you want to share about any offerings that you have going on? I know you're already in you've already started the Venus alchemy that's going on right now for this Venus cycle. Anything you want to share about?
Yeah. So interestingly, of course, the current Venus cycle, the Venus rose in Capricorn, and it's, all about the Capricorn mysteries, which of course the lunar standstill is when the full moon is in Capricorn. It's all about the Capricorn mysteries. So those things are tied together. People can join anytime if they want to do that ceremonial work in a community. Very, very fun. My Star Alchemy, people can still take that class, the Bohemian Star class. And the thing that I forgot to mention is how when we go through the lunar standstill time, the moon is going out, and it has its inner standstill and its outer standstill. There are certain times, certain stars are being occulted by the moon in that process. And I am putting together some information about that, because this is a little bit beyond the scope of what we're talking about, but just that excitement about these star occultations, because it's not unlike when the moon occults something, when the moon, when we have an eclipse or whatever is going on, there's an acceleration of the energies connected to those stars. And so that's another thing that we can tune into.
Oh, so cool.
Time. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Well, I definitely recommend tuning into, like, subscribing to your YouTube channel. You put out such amazing transmissions on what's going on in your email list. And I'll have all your links in that article right below this video here. And so it's just truly a pleasure to get to be here with you, Kaylin. And this is what an incredible offering you brought through to us. I am totally inspired that there is even more magic around me than I even realize that I can tune into. It's just incredible. And so thank you so much for being here. It's such a delight. And thank you everyone that's tuning in and sharing in this space together. So grateful to be here, and I'll see you all in the next talk. Bye for now, everyone.